this up real quick. An oasis in the Pikes Peak prairies. Surrounded by rolling golden hills filled with life, a spring from nowhere sinks the fields. It eases the thirst of many. From its use, beauty and mystery surround it. The views from the top of the bluffs could watch the elevation drop, only being blocked by the mighty Spanish peaks and horizon. The use of the bottom bluffs was limitless, with an ancient forest of stone and forgotten creatures lining its interiors. A new forest that does not belong there blankets the indent of earth that the creek created. It is the Jimmy Camp area. Without it, the American West would not be the same. Hello guys, my name is Coben Scott. As mentioned, I am a history writer for the local newspaper out in Falcon and just general eastern El Paso County. And this area here, the Jimmy Camp region, is a sub-region of our beautiful Pikes Peak region, located just south of the Palmer Divide, east of Colorado Springs, and it is filled with so much interesting history that I'll be discussing with y'all today through its beautiful geography. Now, the Jimmy Camp area is mainly composed of three different locations: Corral Bluffs, Jimmy Camp itself, and the prairie surrounding it, all of which have their own story, but combined make a mighty one. Here's a great picture of that aerial shot of the geography. You can see the uniqueness of it with a little bit of labeling to help you understand a better picture of where it's at. Starting off though, we'll hit Corral Bluffs, definitely the oldest of that region, and one of the most important spots in today for so many different reasons. Biggest right now being paleontology. First off, with the prehistory of it, it goes all the way back to Cretaceous Colorado. Now, back in the Cretaceous time period, Colorado was much more of a Everglades-esque location, more muddy, subtropical, filled with palm trees and all sorts of amphibians and reptiles and stuff you would find more in the Florida stretch. But of course, as time moved on through just the change of Earth, including the Dakota Formation, land would sink and move and then get pushed on up into that beautiful rimmed bluff that we see today. Now, think of that formation, coming from the Dakota Formation, very similar to that of Dakota, or the North Dakota Badlands, that national park. Very similar fossils are being found there, as well as here in Corral Bluffs, most notably Cretaceous era mammals, which are apparently some of the hardest to find, but out there they are in bulk. And they're very well preserved from that muddy, swampy essence from the Cretaceous era through concretions. Most of these fossils are skulls that are in these little rocks, and just like you crack them open, and there's a skull from 65 million years ago, which the Denver Museum of Nature and Science is very grateful to have down here. Following the prehistory, we'll get more into modern history, which so much of it, and we'll be jumping around the timeline. A lot of these gaps will be filled when we get to Jimmy Camp, so keep that in mind. Starting with the natives, history here goes back. Archaeology is dating at least 5,000 years of human presence through the use of, or the findings of tools and weapons and pottery. The archaeologists out in the field there are claiming that this area is getting up there to the significance of the Four Corners region of North America. Now, while there aren't cliff dwellings out here, the history of the indigenous people goes just as far back. And now the natives, they would use this land, the Corral Bluffs area, greatly. Now, from the top of the bluff, you could see herds of bison just roaming by the hundreds, if not thousands back then. And from that vantage point, they would go down to the base of the bluffs and kind of herd the bison in, scare them into these naturally formed stone walls at the base of the bluff for better hunting. Not only did the base of the bluff help out with hunting, but it also helped out with weather protection. Now, those of you who aren't familiar with how the weather is out east, the wind is brutal. And with these natural stone walls out there, it is great protectant from the ripping winds and the roaring blizzards. Not just for people, but also for these animals. Maybe how the natives got inspired to herd these creatures in these walls. Up next, we'll jump later down the line. We have this beautiful picture of stone engravings around the area. And that comes from Mr. Charles Goodnight and his cowboys that roamed through. So, sometime around the 1870s up until the 1890s, Charles Goodnight and his cowpoke would ride cattle from Texas up to Cheyenne, Wyoming, and they loved this spot. Mr. Goodnight actually named Corral Bluffs for the naturally forming corrals at the base of the bluffs. Now, him and his cowboys have left their marks. Seeing in this picture here, you can see one of those little sandstone formations right there, and one of those dates, notably, there's a little anchor right there, which I think is really interesting to look at. Someone engraved next to it is the date 1888, so some sailor was fairly lost. But yeah, they used the base of the bluffs very similar to how the natives did, where they would corral their cattle in and then go take rest over at Jimmy Camp. Then jumping more down the timeline, we get to a figure who's a little more relevant to Colorado Springs, Mr. Matt France, an early mayor and pioneer of Colorado Springs. Now, at the time, Pikeview coal mining was the main source of coal, but whether it be for eyesore or lack of abundance of coal, it would end up kind of being shut down. There was a demand for, well, more coal, and even though the miners out here weren't necessarily looking for gold out of the Cripple Creek mugshotters over there, Matt France, who lived kind of in the Jimmy Camp area, noticed that there was a great abundance of coal out where he was. Now, this can be thanked to Cretaceous Colorado, you know, those unlucky creatures that were not formed into concretions of skulls would end up carbonizing into coal, just kind of sprinkling this land here. And Matt France, realizing this, started his own little mining town called Franceville, along with a friend of him. They would create another one called McFerrin out there. And that coal mining production went on until, I believe, the 1970s, and the length of it stretched all the way out to Omaha, Nebraska. So it was a very, very successful coal mine, just nestled right below the bluffs there. Now, here's a little bit more moderner history, if you will, what it's used for today. The paleontology, of course, as I've been saying for this little area here, is so abundant. The scientists up at Denver Museum of Nature and Science are always out there finding new stuff, adding to our collection of what we know of just ancient life. Very well protected. Tours of it are going on now through the city of Colorado Springs privately. Another big piece out there is ranching. Very big for ranching, and that'll be a common theme through all these little spots here as we keep moving down. The ranchers out there, though, I mean, just as Charles Goodnight and his cowpoke, they love it out there. And then, of course, a little fun spot of entertainment, I guess, is racing. Ram Off-Road and Aztec Racing have found their home at the Bowl of the Bluffs, kind of ripping it around there. Obviously, that was before a lot of the paleontology and archaeology, but it makes for an interesting scenery around that spot. But now we'll move on to Jimmy Camp and filling in some of those gaps of time and history. So going to young Jimmy, we'll go back to the early native people. Now, as mentioned, archaeology is dating back at least 5,000 years in this area. It is so rich in the stuff they're finding out there. On some of the private tours, there has been documentation of people literally tripping over pottery that's over 2,000 years old. These first travelers, likely paleo people moving down from the Great Plains or even over from the mountains to east, they needed places to rest and camp and resupply, and this spot worked out great for them. It was a little oasis. Now, through the Denver Basin, it reaches just right to the bottom of the Jimmy Camp stretch right there, which produces wonderful groundwater, which is great for all the grass and vegetation and whatever else there. But it also spurts up a little spring, creating Jimmy Camp Creek, which would just be a great little spot. As I mentioned in the little poem I opened with, I guess, it indents the earth, creating these nice hills and almost an amphitheater of stones. And it, again, created a great windbreak, a great place to resupply water, and just a good spot to rest before their next move. Now, the first people out here, though, they didn't have a whole lot of shade. Today you can see a beautiful ponderosa pine forest that blankets the creek, but that's relatively young. Nobody's too sure on how that forest got there. There are theories that a bird could have picked up seeds from the Palmer Divide up in Black Forest, flew them down, and then dropped them next to the stream, and trees started sprouting. It could be a hoofed creature had a seed stuck on their foot. But the theory that I like to believe is that the people out here were tired of the summer heat in the prairie and decided that they wanted a little forest and started planting trees, which would eventually blossom into a massive, beautiful forest out there, keeping it incredibly well shaded, again, breaking the wind, helping against the storms, whether it be blizzard or rain. And it just makes this spot even better for people to occupy and camp in. Lots of great firewood, building wood, whatever it be. And these people, the indigenous people, they use it very, very frequently. But after the indigenous people, we get to the Americans, that being Jimmy. Now, nobody's too sure who Jimmy is, the man who the camp is named for. We're not even certain if he existed or not. There are many interesting stories, ranging from he was a dwarf Irishman who was foretold his death, or it could just be a trapper that found a cool spot and wanted to build a cabin. Regardless of all that, what we do know is whoever did live there had a great relationship with the indigenous people at the time, and that would have been the Utes to the west, to the Cheyenne and Arapaho to the east. And it kind of made this place a nice little spot of peace, great for trade, great for staying. And a lot of other people would realize that where there's water and wood and not any unfriendly folk, it makes for a great place to camp. That leads into our three main passerbys through the American occupation of this land, I guess, starting with the adventurers. Now, Jimmy, he came in about the 1830s, 1840s, we're guessing. That makes this spot the oldest American occupied location of the modern Colorado area. And, you know, Jimmy being there, as I mentioned, with all the goods and the peace, helped spawn a lot of these early travelers passing through. Starting with George Ruxton, early great American Western explorer. He would document it. The trappers, of course, would use this. The Trapper Trail actually utilized Jimmy Camp as a primary hub for their migration up from Santa Fe up into the mountains of wherever they're choosing, that being with Mr. James Beckworth, a very famous Westerner who supposedly was great friends with Jimmy and helped trace down the murderers of Jimmy with the surrounding indigenous people, though he was known for tall tales, so we aren't fully sure if that was the case or not. Other notable adventures that passed through the area were, of course, Mr. Kit Carson and Mr. John C. Fremont. There's a story of them on, I believe, Fremont's first expedition out to Colorado, where they were just documenting and making maps of the area, and they somehow got lost around east of Castle Rock, kind of modern-day Elizabeth, Kiowa area, had some bad bison, got sick, followed the wrong stream down, got chased up a hill by Indians, and then were on the verge of death before they shot a grizzly bear in what would be the Peyton area. And then Kit Carson would supposedly recognize the area and follow the Trapper Trail down to Jimmy Camp, where they would resupply and make it back to the east safely. So that's just one little story out of this stretch. Up next, we have another trail to come through that uses the Trapper Trail, that being the Cherokee Trail, helping with the Pikes Peak Gold Rush that brings in the 59ers, and they would utilize Jimmy Camp very, very extensively to help with their quest to find gold. Up next, we got the ranchers, utilizing the Jimmy Camp Trail and, of course, the Goodnight Loving Trail, who would keep their cattle out in the corrals and then camp over in Jimmy Camp. Now we got the legacy of Jimmy, where it's at today. As I mentioned, a lot of archaeology, a lot of preservation, a lot of different landowners, or a lot of different people own the land, Colorado Springs being a big owner. There are plans to turn it into a park, but as of now, we are waiting. It's waiting for its next occupiers. Then we move on to the prairie. The prairie plays a massive role in it, starting with the wildlife. Of course, we got the beautiful plains bison, who would help create this beautiful ecosystem. A lot of locals out there do wish that bison would be repopulated when this does become a park, which would be very interesting. Obviously, they help with the ecosystem. Their wallows make a great spot for amphibians, insects, all that good stuff. Then we got the pronghorn out there, who are a very old creature and a very picky one too. Their presence symbolizes a great ecosystem of different food and water and all that good stuff. And then of course prairie dogs. I don't have a picture up here, but they are a keystone species. Their burrows house many. They help with soil control, and they just make the land better. And then of course none of them would be around if not for the growth. Lots and lots of vegetation out here, notably blue grama grass, our state grass, great for grazers, whether it be the bison or the cattle. Indian rice grass, there's a lot of metates out there, whether it be natural or made by the indigenous people. And with the rice grass, they would pick the grass and then grind it up in the metates and make a meal out of it, so great food for them. And of course the yucca, though it might be undesirable for most, the yucca has many uses, from its root being soap, its points being used for baskets, to its leaves being used for food. So the growth out there, again, thanks to the Denver Basin and the groundwater, is very plentiful. And then we get to wildlife. We can't talk about the area without Mrs. Ruth Banning and Mr. Lewis. They would purchase the bulk of the land, have a massive soil reconservation program occurring to help regrowth the land after years of good night's cattle passing through and eating it all. And they take pride in it. They would actually move their house from Colorado Springs to the base of the bluff. Mr. Lewis, Lewis is the last name. Mr. Lewis, he would put a train car up on top of the bluff, and it would be the unofficial town hall of eastern El Paso County. He'd get all of his famous friends out there, and they'd party and have a good time. And once they passed, the land kind of went up to whoever could buy it. Thankfully, Colorado Springs did purchase a good bunch of it, but their legacy still has all those cattle roaming around today. And that leads us to where we are today with the Jimmy Camp area. As I mentioned, it's kind of in a little bit of a parks limbo with all sorts of different folk owning it, both being Colorado Springs, as I mentioned. And it's definitely debated whether they want to turn it into a park or keep it for a little bit, extract all they can with archaeology, paleontology, and see what more they can buy. But for now, it just stays and stands as a great preserve of not just the wildlife, the flora and fauna, but also the beautiful history that is left behind through stone engravings of cowboys and broken bottles of miners and pottery shards of paleo people. So thank you guys so much for having me. My name is Coben Scott. I really am grateful to be included here, and that was my presentation. Thank you.